Welcome, everyone, to TechDaily.ai. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined by our guest, Sophia. You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit TechDaily.ai to get started today.
Hey, everyone. It's great to be here.
So what if I told you that the most complex, life-altering computer Apple makes isn't actually sitting on your desk, and it's not even tucked into your pocket?
Right. It's a lot closer than that.
Exactly. It's actually sitting inside your ears right now, like literally right now. So today we are exploring the major, highly anticipated software changes Apple is rolling out with iOS 27. And, alongside iPadOS 27 and macOS 27 too.
Yeah, it's a massive ecosystem shift.
It really is. And the mission of our conversation today is to untangle exactly how these updates will fundamentally change the way you interact with the devices you use every single day.
Because it's not just a coat of paint this time.
No, not at all. We are looking specifically at two huge things: fixing the incredibly frustrating AirPods user experience and the quiet, completely ground-up rebuild of Apple's artificial intelligence engine. Okay, let's unpack this.
We really do need to start with that computer in your ear, I think, because to understand these upcoming software updates, you have to understand the physical constraints those earbuds have been operating under for years now.
Right.
When we talk about friction in user experience, the current state of the AirPods ecosystem is, it's practically a masterclass in technical debt.
It is the perfect example of what happens when the hardware team moves at light speed and the software interface gets completely left in the dust.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, over the last few years, the physical capabilities of these little white earbuds have just skyrocketed. We're not talking about dumb wireless headphones anymore that just, receive an audio signal from your phone so you can listen to a podcast.
Right, they are doing so much heavy lifting now.
Yeah, Apple has packed in massive features: advanced head gesture recognition, sophisticated sleep detection algorithms. And this is the crazy one with the AirPods Pro 2. They've actually engineered a clinical-grade hearing aid.
Which is just a staggering engineering achievement when you really step back and look at it. You are taking a mainstream mass-market consumer accessory and elevating it to a recognized FDA-cleared medical device.
It's wild.
It really is. And doing that requires an intense level of acoustic calibration, biometric precision, and, most importantly, user control. The hardware inside your ear is performing computational audio adjustments tens of thousands of times a second.
Wow. Tens of thousands.
Yeah. But the software interface governing it all just hasn't scaled to meet those new requirements at all.
And that right there is the core of the frustration for you, the listener, right? The control menu is still treating these clinical health trackers like some generic Bluetooth speaker you bought at a gas station back in 2016.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
Like, if you want to adjust your hearing aid transparency levels or tweak your spatial audio profile, you have to dig into this tiny settings interface that just awkwardly pops up at the top of the iOS settings app.
It's so buried.
It really is. It's basically like taking a modern, high-performance V8 engine and this super high-tech digital dashboard and trying to stuff it all into a 1998 Honda Civic.
Yes.
Like, the raw power under the hood is phenomenal, but the controls are just hopelessly cramped and restricted by layers of old legacy plastic.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. The root cause here is that hardware development just completely lapped the interface design. Apple built that original UI for a very simple set of tasks.
Just the basics.
Exactly. Changing the device name, checking the battery, maybe setting a double-tap shortcut to skip a track on Spotify. That is literally all it was designed to do.
Right.
But now that exact same narrow interface is being asked to manage complex biometric health data and intense audio routing. It's bursting at the seams.
And let's talk about the absolute worst manifestation of this legacy setup, which is firmware updates.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
It is arguably the most opaque, user-hostile process in their entire ecosystem right now. If you want to update your phone or your Mac, what do? You press an update button.
You see a progress bar. You actually know what is happening.
Exactly. But for AirPods, the standard operating procedure is basically just wait and pray.
Wait and pray, yeah.
You leave them in the case, you plug them in, keep them near your phone, and you just sort of hope that the background process magically triggers overnight. Why is it designed this way? It drives people crazy.
It really does. So the technical reason for that opacity is tied directly to Bluetooth low energy bandwidth constraints and aggressive power management.
Okay. make sense of that for me.
Sure. So AirPods don't have a dedicated, beefy system on a chip managing heavy background tasks while they sleep, not the way an iPhone or a Mac does.
Right. They're tiny.
Exactly. When they are in the case, they are essentially dormant to preserve battery life. So to update them, the iPhone has to ping them, establish a secure handshake, and then slowly trickle the firmware payload over a very low bandwidth Bluetooth connection.
Like dripping water into a bucket.
Basically, yeah. And Apple hid this process from the user because it's slow, it's prone to interruption, and honestly, exposing a progress bar that takes 45 minutes to move a few millimeters would just cause user panic.
I mean, I get the hardware limitation standpoint, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
But hiding the progress bar doesn't solve the user anxiety, especially when the battery status display is equally unreliable.
Oh, the battery widget is so inconsistent.
Right. Sometimes you open the case and a beautifully animated widget pops up, and sometimes you get absolutely nothing. You just stare at your screen and eventually have to manually swipe over to the battery widget on your home screen to see if they're charged.
Yeah.
And when you rely on these devices to literally manage your hearing loss, that level of UI ambiguity stops being just a minor annoyance. It starts being a critical failure.
Which brings us directly to the iOS 27 overhaul, because they are finally fixing this. According to reporting from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, Apple is actually ripping out that legacy settings menu entirely.
It is about time.
Yeah, they are rebuilding it from the ground up.
So the V8 engine is finally getting an appropriate dashboard. What does this new architecture actually look like for the user?
The whole redesign is totally focused on functional organization. So instead of a single, endlessly scrolling list of disparate toggles, which is what we have now, the new architecture will prominently highlight major feature categories based on how you actually use the device.
Okay, so grouping things logically.
Exactly. Your clinical hearing aid settings, your spatial audio calibration, your head gesture controls, they will all have dedicated streamlined sections that are surfaced immediately when you open the menu.
That sounds so much better.
It's about prioritizing the features that impact your daily life rather than just burying them at the bottom of a generic Bluetooth list.
Look, I am thrilled they're fixing the menu layout. I really am.
Yeah.
But I have to push back on the fundamental architecture here. Because there is a massive catch to this update, isn't there?
There is a catch, yeah.
Despite this total ground-up rebuild of the interface, Apple is still stubbornly refusing to give AirPods their own dedicated app on the home screen.
Yeah, they're keeping the controls strictly confined to the Settings app.
I just don't get it. I really don't understand the logic there. It feels incredibly stubborn. I mean, look at their other wearables. The Apple Watch gets its own beautifully designed, comprehensive companion app right there on your home screen.
The Watch app is great.
And the Vision Pro gets its own dedicated app too.
Yeah.
But the best-selling earbuds on the planet, which we've already established, are now highly complex biometric medical computers, are still relegated to a submenu. Like, why make the user dig into system settings every single time they want to tweak their hearing profile?
It's a great question, and it really highlights a classic conflict inside Apple. It's this tension between their foundational design philosophy and the evolving reality of their actual product lines.
What do you mean?
Well, Apple operates on a principle of extreme restraint when it comes to home screen clutter. They have a deep-seated fear of overwhelming you with default utility apps.
Sure, they want it to look clean.
Right. And for years, the core marketing identity of AirPods has been frictionless magic. You open the case, they connect, and you never have to think about them again. Giving them a dedicated app kind of shatters that illusion.
Because an app implies work.
Exactly. It forces an acknowledgement that these devices require management and manual calibration.
But they do require management. That's the whole point. You cannot calibrate a medical device with frictionless magic. You need precision controls.
I agree completely, and the product has clearly outgrown the minimalist philosophy. So what we're seeing in iOS 27 is a compromise. Or, maybe a half measure is a better term.
A half measure, definitely.
They're gutting the internal settings menu to make it function and feel like a standalone app. But they just refuse to cross the threshold of actually putting a neat little icon on your home screen. They are accepting the UI friction of the settings app paradigm just to maintain the aesthetic of simplicity on the surface.
It's a stubbornness that forces you, the user, to work harder just to maintain Apple's marketing narrative.
Yeah, pretty much.
But this insistence on keeping AirPods confined to a hidden menu becomes an even bigger bottleneck when you realize what these earbuds are about to be connected to. Because iOS 27 isn't just reorganizing toggles, right? It is entirely replacing the underlying brain that processes your voice commands.
Yes. And this is the structural rebuild that will likely define the next decade for the company.
It's
It
huge.
really is. Apple's initial entry into the generative AI space was notoriously rough. I mean, they essentially bolted a few new generative features onto their legacy Siri architecture, and the user experience suffered dramatically for it.
Honestly, calling it rough is a very polite way to phrase it. The initial rollout of Apple Intelligence just limped out the door.
It was not great.
It felt like they were shipping features they were actively embarrassed by just to appease investors who demanded an AI narrative on the earnings calls.
That's a fair assessment.
But this quiet rebuild in iOS 27, it feels completely different. They are fundamentally changing their approach to Siri, aren't they?
They are. Siri is undergoing a total pivot. We are finally moving away from the rigid command and response voice assistant model we've known for over a decade.
The old, I found these results on the web, Siri.
Exactly. We're leaving that behind and shifting toward a dynamic, context-aware chatbot experience. And the back-end infrastructure driving this is a media partnership with Google, integrating their Gemini technology.
Wait, okay, I need to pause here because this raises a massive red flag for me.
Privacy thing.
Yes, Apple's entire brand identity is built on privacy. Their marketing literally says what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. So how does offloading Siri queries to Google Gemini, a company whose entire business model is built on data extraction and advertising, how does that not completely obliterate Apple's privacy stance?
It is the most critical question regarding this entire update, and it all comes down to how Apple is structuring the routing pipeline.
Okay, how did that work?
The operating system is essentially acting as a highly secure traffic hub. Apple is still using its own on-device proprietary foundational models for system-level personal tasks.
So stuff involving my actual data.
Right. If you ask Siri to set an alarm, or find a photo of your dog from last Tuesday, or read a text message from your mom, that data never leaves the local silicon. It is processed entirely on your phone's neural engine.
Okay, so the local personal context stays local. That's a relief. But where does Google Gemini actually kick in then?
Gemini handles the world knowledge queries.
World knowledge, okay.
Yeah. So if you ask Siri to summarize a complex 40-page PDF on quantum mechanics, or generate a detailed itinerary for a trip to Tokyo based on current flight prices, the local Apple model recognizes it lacks the parameter count and the cloud computing power to handle that effectively.
It knows what it doesn't know.
Exactly. So it then asks you for explicit permission to hand that specific query over to Gemini.
Oh, so there's an opt-in firewall before anything leaves the device.
Precisely. And even when it passes the query to Google, the mechanism is heavily protected. Apple anonymizes the request.
Or Google doesn't know it's me asking.
Right. Your IP address is masked, the query is stripped of all your Apple ID identifiers, and Google is contractually barred from retaining that query to train their future AI models. Apple is treating Gemini as a specialized external tool rather than giving Google a skeleton key to your device.
Wow. That dual model approach actually makes a lot of sense. You get the privacy of local processing for your personal tasks, and you get the raw computational power of the cloud for complex generation.
It's the best of both worlds, ideally.
Yeah. And it's not just text and voice generation getting an upgrade here, right? The visual models are being completely overhauled as well.
Yes. The Image Playground app and Genmoji, which is their custom emoji generator, they are seeing substantial improvements in output quality.
Because they needed it.
Oh, they desperately needed it. The initial iterations of these visual tools produced images that felt a bit like early 2000s clip art.
They were objectively terrible.
Mm.
I remember trying to make a custom emoji, and it just looked like a blurry mess. Why were they so bad initially?
It comes back to that local processing limitation we just talked about. Running a diffusion model entirely on a smartphone chip means you are severely limited in parameter count compared to a massive cloud-based image generator like Midjourney.
Right, a phone isn't a server farm.
Exactly. So for iOS 27, Apple has heavily refined their underlying models to optimize for that local hardware, but they are also implementing smarter, more intuitive suggestions for casual users.
What does that mean in practice?
It means you aren't just staring at a blank prompt box trying to figure out what to type. The system helps guide you to create something that actually looks good within the constraints of the local model.
That's really smart. And they are also opening the ecosystem up, right? It's not just a binary choice between Apple's local models and Google Gemini anymore.
Right. That is the third pillar of this AI rebuild. Apple is building an API layer that allows third-party AI models to plug directly into the operating system.
Oh, wow.
So if you prefer OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude, you will eventually be able to route specific queries to those engines instead of Gemini. It transforms iOS from this closed proprietary garden into a flexible AI aggregator.
This all points back to a central realization for the company, doesn't it? By completely redesigning Siri, partnering with Gemini, and opening up to third-party APIs, Apple is quietly admitting they had to rebuild the foundation from scratch.
Yeah, they couldn't fake it anymore.
Right, they realized they couldn't just slap a flashy new logo on the legacy Siri code and hope it worked.
It demonstrates a very necessary pivot away from industry hype. I mean, the broader tech sector right now is just obsessed with rushing broken AI products to market just to capture headlines and drive stock prices.
Move fast and break things, yeah.
Exactly. And Apple tried to play that game early on and accumulated massive technical debt, partnering with Google, refining their local visual models, and doing the hard, unglamorous work of rebuilding the back-end infrastructure that is how you build a resilient, long-lasting ecosystem.
And the brilliant part of this infrastructure is the cross-platform synchronization. Because Apple designs the silicon and the operating systems across their entire hardware lineup, this isn't just an isolated iPhone update.
No, it's everywhere.
Right, this rebuilt brain is launching simultaneously on iOS 27, iPadOS 27, and macOS 27.
And that synchronization is where the true user value lies. The context follows you.
Give me an example of that.
So say you are researching a topic on your Mac, and Siri uses Gemini to generate a complex summary of a document. That exact context is immediately accessible when you walk away and ask a follow-up question through your AirPods.
It just knows what you were doing.
Exactly. The AI isn't siloed on one specific device anymore. It blankets your entire digital environment. And by the way, all of the specifics regarding these software updates are going to be officially unveiled at the WWDC conference on June 8 at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
I am definitely going to be tuning into that. It really is a fascinating pivot for the company. They are taking two areas of intense user friction, the legacy architecture of the AirPods settings, and the underpowered initial rollout of their AI tools, and they're addressing them not with flashy new hardware announcements, but with deep structural software overhauls.
Which is often the most impactful kind of update, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
Resolving the software friction on the devices you already own fundamentally changes your daily relationship with technology, much more than buying a new phone does.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if you are trying to wrap your head around what this massive update actually means for your daily routine, here are the two major takeaways for you. First, your AirPods are finally getting a streamlined, functional dashboard that actually matches the power of the tiny computers they have become.
Thank goodness.
Right. The era of buried menus and firmware update anxiety is coming to an end, even if Apple still refuses to give us a dedicated app on the home screen.
And second, Apple is delivering a highly disciplined, Gemini-backed AI overhaul across all of your screens. They are fixing the foundational routing of Siri, ensuring that your personal data stays local while leveraging the cloud for complex tasks, and bringing a truly modern chatbot experience to your entire ecosystem.
It is going to be a significant shift in how these devices feel to use every day. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something that builds on the collision of these two specific updates we've just discussed.
It's an interesting intersection to consider, for sure.
Yeah, think about the trajectory of the hardware in your ears. As we discussed, your AirPods are already acting as clinical-grade hearing aids and sophisticated biometric sleep trackers.
Right.
And now, with iOS 27, Siri is evolving into a highly capable Gemini-powered entity that lives directly in your ears, understanding context, routing complex queries, and managing your digital life without you ever needing to look at a screen.
They are quietly absorbing the majority of tasks that traditionally required visual interaction with a display.
Exactly. So here's the thought. If the device in your ear is monitoring your health, processing advanced AI commands, and audibly managing your daily schedule, at what point does the iPhone in your pocket cease to be the main attraction?
Oh, that's fascinating.
Right. At what point does the phone just become a dumb, glowing accessory like a battery pack and cellular modem, just doing background processing while the AirPods become your actual primary computer?
That shifts the entire paradigm of personal computing from visual to ambient.
It really does. It changes everything about how we view hardware in the AI era. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and untangling the mechanics of these updates. We appreciate you taking the time to explore this structural shift with us. Stay curious, keep your devices charged, and we'll catch you next time.